This episode of the Cyberwire is made possible in part by Strider Technologies. Strider is the first strategic intelligence tool built to help companies, government agencies, and research institutions protect their innovation and compete in a new era of global strategic competition. With trillions of open-source data points, Strider's technology and intelligence solutions enable you to proactively identify, manage, and respond to state-sponsored intellectual property theft and supply chain risks. Learn how to secure your technology talent and supply chains at striderintel.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cyberwire's Research Saturday. I'm Dave Bittner, and this is our weekly conversation with researchers and analysts tracking down the threats and vulnerabilities, solving some of the hard problems of protecting ourselves in a rapidly evolving cyberspace. Thanks for joining us.
Billbug does have quite a long history. So that activity we published on in 2018 that concerned Billbug, at that time it was targeting organizations in the communications, the geospatial imaging and defense sectors, primarily in Southeast Asia. And that's really a hallmark, I would say, of Billbug in general. That's
Bridget O'Gorman. She's a senior intelligence analyst at Symantec's threat hunter team. The research we're discussing today is titled Billbug. State-sponsored actor targets CERT authority and government agencies in multiple Asian countries.
So when we first published about Billbug in 2018, we were tracking this activity under the name TRIP. However, we subsequently did further investigations into this group, and we came to the conclusion that this activity we were referring to as TRIP, and Billbug was really all likely the same group and kind of all likely the same activity. So now we track all this activity under the Billbug name. And in that activity we published about in 2018, Billbug was at that time targeting organizations in the communications, geospatial imaging and defense sectors, primarily in Southeast Asia. And this is really quite typical now of Billbug's activity. Those are sort of hallmarks of its preferred victims. It does primarily go after organizations based in Asia, primarily Southeast Asia, and communications, defense, government. Those are the sectors this group appears to be primarily interested in. And its primary motivation in all these instances does appear to be espionage. However, in this 2018 activity, there was a notable discovery in that when Billbug had targeted this satellite communications operator and also in the geospatial imaging and mapping company, they did show an interest in the operational sides of those companies. They were looking at computers that, in the satellite communications company, they were targeting computers that ran the software that monitored and controlled satellites. So there was kind of speculation at that time that there may have been a disruption motivation behind that particular campaign as well. Although Billbug primarily it is considered to be an espionage actor. In that 2018 campaign as well, we saw the group using a mix of living off the land, dual use tools, as well as custom malware. And that's very much a hallmark of how it operates as well. We see that in all the campaigns we've seen Billbug carry out. We've seen them using that mix of dual use for living off the land tools as well as their own custom malware.
Well, let's go through the attack chain together. I mean, how does one find themselves falling victim to this group?
Well, it's not always clear how they gain access to victim machines initially, but in this particular campaign, this most recent campaign that we saw, there were some indications that the attackers were exploiting public-facing applications to gain initial access to victim networks. And then we did see them in this campaign, as we have seen them in previous campaigns, using multiple dual-use tools, living off the land tools. As I've already said, that's very much a hallmark of their activity. And in this particular campaign, some of the dual-use tools we saw them using were tools we often see being leveraged, I suppose, by malicious actors. We saw them using AdFind. That's a publicly available tool. It can be used to query Active Directory, but we do see it often used by attackers to help them map a network. We also saw them using WinRAR. Again, we often see this used by malicious actors. It can be used to archive or zip up files for example, prior to exfiltration if you're a malicious actor. And we did also see them using certutil, another very commonly kind of abused tool that we see misused by malicious actors, and that's a Microsoft Windows utility that can be used for various different purposes by malicious actors. It can be used to download files and to install browser root certificates and things like that. So they used all these various dual use living off the land tools, as well as deploying their own custom malware, which they do now use as well.
And now, a word from our sponsor, SpyCloud, the cybercrime analytics leader. SpyCloud disrupts cybercrime by telling you what criminals know about your business and your customers, so you can take action to prevent ransomware, account takeover, and online fraud. SpyCloud constantly recaptures and analyzes new data from the criminal underground, including credentials, cookies, and PII siphoned from malware-infected devices. With knowledge of the specific data criminals have in hand from InfoStealer malware on managed and unmanaged devices, security teams can respond with a more efficient and effective process called post-infection remediation. Get SpyCloud's post-infection remediation guide outlining the 7 steps for preventing a malware infection from becoming a full-blown ransomware incident. Visit spycloud.com/cyberwire. That's spycloud.com/cyberwire. And we thank SpyCloud for sponsoring our show. This episode of the Cyberwire is made possible in part by Strider Technologies. Strider is the first strategic intelligence tool built to help companies, government agencies, and research institutions protect their innovation and compete in a new era of global strategic competition. With trillions of open-source data points, Strider's technology and intelligence solutions enable you to proactively identify, manage, and respond to state-sponsored intellectual property theft and supply chain risks. Learn how to secure your technology talent and supply chains at striderintel.com. And what are the backdoors that they're using here, and what are the capabilities?
Yeah, we saw in this most recent campaign, we saw them using 2 backdoors that we did previously see them using as well in the 2019 campaign that they carried out as well. So those backdoors are Hannotog, as well as another backdoor called Sage. I was never 100% sure how to pronounce this one, but Sagerunex. And those were both tools we saw being used previously in the 2019 activity. And that is how we sort of linked, we were able to link all this activity to Billbug basically, but was with the usage, by seeing the usage of these tools in both campaigns. And basically the Hannotog is a loader essentially. Yeah, the Hannotog is a loader, and Hannotog is a custom backdoor, and that can give the attackers basis kind of persistence presence on victim networks. Sagerunex then is kind of it's fairly resilient backdoor. It can implement multiple forms of communication with the command and control server. It's quite a powerful backdoor in that way. But interestingly, in this particular campaign, in this most recent activity, we saw this analyzed sample that had no hard-figured configuration. So it had to be dropped onto the machine by a loader malware, such as Hannotog. So that is likely why we see these kind of 2 tools being used together in this way. So once we see this kind of sample, the payload dropped in the machine, we see it write logs, which are encrypted to a temporary file. We see this encryption key, which is hard-coded, and we saw this previously used as well with a previous sample of this malware. So again, we were able to connect that to previous Billbug activity. And we saw the structure of the payload once it was downloaded then. We saw it was decrypted, and kind of what it does, I guess, depends on the command ID once it is downloaded. And it's capable of carrying out various commands. It can execute programs or DLLs or commands. It can steal local files. It can drop files to a specified path, as well as returning a list of currently configured proxies on the machine to the attackers as well. So it can carry out various different has various different capabilities, I suppose, basically. And while we don't see data being exfiltrated in this campaign, Billbug is widely regarded as being an espionage actor, so it's most likely that data theft was the motivation in this campaign. And obviously, the targets in this campaign as well also point to espionage being the most likely motivation for these attackers as well.
And so what are your recommendations for organizations to best protect themselves here?
Billbug is quite a sophisticated actor. So it can be, I think the organizations it goes after tends to be, I suppose, highly targeted. They're very interested in a specific group. They're very interested in specific sectors, in specific geographies. So those are kind of the areas that need to be worried about Billbug. But as it's I suppose, it's an actor that uses a lot of living off the land tools. It uses a lot of dual use tools. So it's important that organizations have that kind of multi-step security software in place so that they're watching out for this kind of suspicious activity, that it's not just a matter of detecting the malware. It's finding that suspicious activity, dual use tools being used in an unusual way, tools that are already on your computer being used in a non-typical manner. So it's important to have that kind of multi-layer security stack so that you can detect this kind of suspicious activity, so you can stop it, I suppose, before the malware is even dropped onto your computer, which is key, I think, for these kinds of attacks, because dual use tools, living off the land tools, we see them used so often now by these kind of sophisticated nation state actors as well as ransomware actors.
Our thanks to Bridget O'Gorman from Symantec's Threat Hunter team for joining us. The research is titled Billbug: State-Sponsored Actor Targets CERT Authority and Government Agencies in Multiple Asian Countries. We'll have a link in the show notes.
Arm your team with the latest news and trends in the evolving cybersecurity landscape with CyberWire Pro Enterprise. Our unlimited pro content will allow you and your team to accelerate and sustain cybersecurity awareness and knowledge. Get access to searchable and accessible news in cybersecurity, business, policy, privacy, disinformation, and more. Find out about our education and military discounts by inquiring at thecyberwire.com/pro.
Hey everybody, Dave here. We love what we do here at the CyberWire and are proud to be able to provide news and insights that top leaders and decision makers rely on every day. We'd like to give a huge thanks to our many sponsors that make all of this possible and invite your company to join them in reaching over 250,000 unique listeners and 50,000 readers each week. Find out about opportunities to bring your brand and messages to the most influential audience in cybersecurity. Visit thecyberwire.com/sponsorship and join in on the action. The CyberWire's Research Saturday podcast is a production of N2K Networks, proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Trey Hester, Brandon Karpf, Eliana White, Puru Prakash, Liz Irvin, Rachel Gelfand, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Maria Vermatsis, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Millie Lardy, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Catherine Murphy, Janine Daly, Jim Hoshite, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, Simone Petrella, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next week.